And welcome everybody to this WHAS 11 Plus special presentation. I'm Doug Proffitt from WHAS 11 News, and we're celebrating Louisville's Waterfront Park. It's now older than 25 years. And really, I think for the first time, I've got the architects together, the two former Louisville leaders who helped make this amazing section of land that was once sand companies and warehouses and junkyards come to life to the Waterfront Park you know and enjoy today. On the left of your screen is the longtime former mayor of Louisville, Jerry Abramson. His nickname is the Mayor for Life. You know his name better as you come in and out of our airport, and if your flights are late, here's the guy you can complain to. Jerry is telling me he's now 78 years old. You look fantastic. And we are sitting in the David Karam building at Waterfront Park, and on the right is David Karam, who was the state senator of Kentucky, who helped funnel a lot of money this way and then became the original president of Waterfront Park. And on a personal note, I love this interview because I've been at WHAS almost 40 years now, and I got to cover the building of Waterfront Park from the very idea stage right to its completion. David, I want to start with you. After 25 years, has this park turned out to the vision you wanted it to be?
Actually, I think, and Jerry would say the same thing, probably much better than we ever expected, and much more celebrated by the community. And one of the things that we just love is that everybody identifies it as their park. So no matter what part of Louisville you're from, or what part of Indiana you're from, or what part of Oldham County you're from, or Jefferson County, everybody thinks Waterfront Park's their park, and that's about as wonderful you could ask for. I mean, I don't know if you could ask for anything better than that, then this is kind of the community place.
And that was the hope. I mean, the hope was, we have this belt of homestead parks around the community, and this was going to be the belt buckle that literally every neighborhood could say, not only is it ours, but let's go down and enjoy the waterfront park because there's no other park like it in the area.
Describe for me what was down here, though. This was public land, but it had no public access.
Well, it was public land because we, the taxpayers of the city of Louisville, owned it. But in fact, it had been leased for years and years and years to companies that used the river for access to materials and for the movement of scrap and for the movement of sand. And for the delivery, I can remember GE, there was a place down here that a lot of their metal, big, huge rolls of metal would come in and be offloaded, then taken out to Appliance Park where they would make washers and dryers out of it. So it was a very active waterfront in that regard. Having said that, once we made the determination that we were going to have a people's park, as the leases came up, the city of Louisville, we did not renew them. And so we took back our land, and there was a few pieces of land along the waterfront that was owned in fee, meaning an individual or a company owned it, so we had to ultimately buy it for the waterfront. But for the most part, the overwhelming majority of piles of sand and piles of rust. And when you look at that bridge over there, when the truckers would come driving down 65, they used to call us Rust City, Junk City, because, pulling into Junk City when they were on their CBs because of all the stuff because of the scrapyards and sand piles along the waterfront.
So David, that's why it took so long to build Waterfront Park, because you had to let lease agreements expire, but there were also battles. I mean, did these companies go away easily?
Well, Jerry is right that a lot of the land was owned by the city and those leases could run out. But there were, as Jerry said, some pieces of land that you had to acquire. And one of the most problematic pieces that you had to acquire was right at the heart of the entrance to Waterfront Park and the entrance to the city. And that was a huge scrapyard that was owned by a local family that took up, in essence, 3 or 4 city blocks. And that was the most, from my perspective, the most important purchase, settlement, lawsuit, whatever you want. All of the above.
To get the junkyard, the scrapyard out of here.
Which not only opened up the waterfront entrance, but also gave us land for the baseball park.
Right. But the design was to integrate this park with the city. And had you had you not been able to acquire that property, what would have occurred was you could have still had a park, but it would have been a river edge strip park that would have been, from an accessibility of the downtown, it would have been extraordinarily difficult. I mean, you'd have to come through, you'd have to walk through the scrap yards to get down to the edge of the city, to the edge of the river. And so that piece of land was just super critical to acquire. And that's one that went through, you talked about some, you said something about there was some fighting. And that was a huge fight. Went to the Kentucky Supreme Court and went through all entire court system to finally get that piece of property.
Well, Jerry, what did you see was the vision here? There were a lot of skeptics that Waterfront Park could work. I mean, were you worried that people would come to Waterfront Park after it opened because they were unsure about coming to downtown and all they had seen was sand companies and scrap yards?
Well, I think when I got elected mayor in '85, took office January 1, '86, this was a community that literally saw the glass half empty. They didn't see it half full. They didn't see the opportunities to take advantage of a unique situation that cities around this country would die for, to be along a water area like that with literally what could ultimately be a clear canvas that we could design with the right architect, a whole new waterfront engagement park for the citizens of our hometown. And so, I think that the skepticism about whether you could do this was the usual SOP around Louisville back in the 80s, that, woe are we can't do things. And if we showed anything, that skepticism should be put aside, and when we put our mind to it as an entire community, we can make things happen. And I could give you example after example.
What did you see it doing for you're the mayor, you're the CEO of the community. I mean, you had a long vision, obviously. It wasn't going to be done in 4 years. What did you see it doing for the city overall in the end?
I took the strategy that had been designed by the mayor before me, Harvey Sloan, where he had literally had public hearings and tried to figure out what to do if and when someone was willing to pull the trigger and really move forward. We took that strategy and we began to say it's time that we begin to move on it. And my hope was that it would be another amenity in terms of the quality of life of our community. I mean, one of the strengths of Louisville, Kentucky, are the Olmsted Parks, that green emerald jewel necklace around us. And this was going to be, the waterfront was going to be the clasp with the green necklace of jeweled green jewels around us with Olmsted. So, the hope is that it would bring people from the east and the west and the south, our neighbors across the river, together to have one area where it's not PRP's park, or it's not the Highlands Park, or it's not the Shawnee or Russell neighborhood park. It is Louisville's park, available for folks throughout the region.
Well, David, you needed money, and you were a powerful state senator at the time before you ran Waterfront Park. Were you able to secure state money at a time? And back then, the legislature was democratically controlled. It was a whole different political scheme in Kentucky.
Well,
you're a Democrat, so you had a lot of power down there.
To get it's important to understand where the money came from. And the fact is that the first money was really created by, in essence, a three-way partnership between David Jones and Sally Brown and Mary Bingham. And David, because if you...
So David Jones, Humana, Sally Brown, Brown Foreman, and the Binghams owned the Courier-Journal and WHAS Television.
WHAS,
okay.
Yeah. So David Jones had a meeting actually in this building, and had the right money-making people to attend the meeting. And at that meeting, we did presentations and about what the hopes were, and talked about the original thing that Harvey commissioned, the original strategic plan that he talked about. And we, at the end of the meeting, he said, "I will match the largest single donation that any person or any foundation would make." And so at that meeting, at the end of the table. He was at one end of the table, and Mary Bingham was the other end of the table. And Mary Bingham got her checkbook out and wrote a check for $1 million on her little checkbook, and sent it down the table in David's own. So that meeting we had started with $2 million. Very shortly after that, the J. Graham Brown Foundation committed $3 million. So you ended up then with with a substantial sum of money, $7 million in the bank in essence. And you needed that to convince the legislature and to convince a governor and to convince the public that you really were going to have something happen. And so when you got that, you could then go to the legislature and you could say, this is not some pie in the sky. We've got money in the bank. And at that point, Brereton Jones was governor, and Mrs. Bingham was a very good friend of Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
And Mary always said, I will ask her to whisper to him on the pillow that he needed to join. And he made a commitment for the first $10 million from the state.
So Jerry, what did the original money that came in, what'd you use it for? What'd you all spend it on?
Well, we had to do the plan. We had to remove the scrap yard. We had to focus on getting an architect to begin dreaming a little bit with us. We had to put time in to start asking the community what they wanted with the money. All of those things took time, and this building that we're in now that's named after David was owned by the Sand Company, as I remember.
Martin Marietta Sand.
We had to either get them to give it to us, or we had to buy it. And
you wanted to keep this building.
Yeah, I think most of us felt that we needed an office right on the waterfront.
Because it's odd. It's odd.
It is different.
But
That's why we call it the David Karam building.
It respects the power of the river the way it's built, right?
In the sense of it, you can flood.
Who's the guy who developed Landscape Architecture magazine, the Louisvillian guy? Grady Clay.
Oh, yeah.
Grady Clay, there were people Mary Bingham, actually, over and above the $1 million, Mary Bingham and the Bingham family gave us the money to buy this building. And the building sat on 1 acre of land that they had fee title to. And the rest, as Jerry Abramson said, the rest of that, which was almost 14 acres, was city-owned property where the lease could be, as Jerry said, the lease could run out. So it was very important to get this piece of land and be able to say that we really have something going there. And so,
was the Big Four Bridge always a prize? Did you envision that you had to have it? Because it took a while to get the Big Four Bridge involved in this park.
It took a while. It took seemingly forever, and
that one went to the U.S. Supreme Court
ultimately as to ownership and,
yes.
and access. And so yes, it took a long time. It was a very exciting part of the waterfront. I walk it at least once every couple of weeks, and there's on the weekends, and there's lots of people who are walking and riding their bikes and jogging. And the development with our colleagues in Indiana has been exceptional, just because the bridge dumps right into their downtown, and so you can get an ice cream, you can get a beer, you can get a barbecue or a pizza. It was very important, but it took an enormous amount of time based on getting the final decision on who owned the bridge. And once we got that, we were able to move accordingly.
What's your favorite part of Waterfront Park?
Well, the bridge is awfully exciting, to say the least. When our son was younger, I thought the play areas were fun, but it's a great place to just walk from all the way from the apartments on the east side all the way down here, and now with the new playground in between 10th and 11th, we took our grandchildren to, and it's just fabulous. And so, today I would say, from my grandchildren's point of view, that new play area is really special.
David, what's your favorite part of Waterfront Park?
Actually, people always ask me that question, and my answer always is it's really not a physical thing. It's the people who come to this park. It's years ago when we started studying this whole idea, one of the things that went all the way back to the founding of Louisville was that there was a statement that there should be a commons. Remember this,
Yeah,
Jerry? There
yeah, yeah.
should be a commons in the center of the city that was where everyone went and
To
gathered.
gather, yeah.
And so Waterfront Park has become the commons for the community, and it's the people who exploded. If you're talking about physical, I guess I'd jump in, Jerry, probably the bridge. The bridge has become, the bridge and that ramp, which, by the way, there's no other ramp in the entire United States that's ever been designed like that ramp. And that ramp is becoming, you can't turn on the TV on any station and not find that they're using the ramp as an icon for the city now. I mean, it's just all the time.
I covered some meetings early on where you all battled with the architect, the designer, because you were upset, Jerry, as the mayor, that you didn't feel it was welcoming enough to the public. What was that all about?
Well, you know, we had the 2022 hearings all over the community asking people what they wanted, which is a really important aspect. If you're going to engage the community to be a part, you got to understand what they want. And what we heard was passive. We want a passive park. We don't want lots of restaurants. We don't want the activity of what's the city in San Antonio on the riverfront where they've got bars and restaurants. I said, well, that's not what we want. We want a passive park. We want to be able to throw a frisbee. We want to be able to play pitch and catch. We want to be able to have a picnic. We want that kind of a park. I felt, however, that there still needed to be some centers of activity for the children. And I thought that we needed playground. And the first and so that sort of went against the overall thinking, although I'm not sure it was framed, I don't want a playground. It was, we want a more passive, we don't want restaurants and bars, etc. So that was the first argument, and we built the park, the first one, right next to the boat dock, just east of here. And then went thereafter and built another one with water features, with the fish and the whatevers, a little further down near the restaurant. And so that was the only disagreement I can remember having with the architect. And you know, when you're mayor, you can win.
You won the argument. Well, I think the discussion at the time was, if we put a children's playground there, will people bring their kids? And Jerry was absolutely right. People, and oh, guess what? The day it opened, it was surrounded, just overwhelmed with kids. Then when you added the second piece, which is the water feature piece, the day it opened, it was overwhelmed with children. If you go down there right now, you're going to find it's just jammed with kids.
So I remember the day on the Great Lawn when we opened the Great Lawn, and you were there in that. When was it that you knew Waterfront Park would be a success? Was it something you saw, something you heard? When was that flashpoint that you thought, the money has been well spent?
Well, I think it wasn't a day or a moment, but I think as time went by and you saw more and more people engaging, you saw more and more activities and more events. We used the Charleston, South Carolina gravel for our active area for festivals, and we put in electric lights and water and hookups right to the left of Joe's Crab Shack. The east of Joe's Crab Shack. And so as you began to see people using it and engaging, I'd drive by coming down to City Hall, sometimes down River Road, or going home, and you just smile because you knew that we had done it right, we had engaged the community, we heard what they said, we did what they said with a little tweaking, and by gosh, it worked.
Well, David, the one thing that I want to ask you that question too. When was it that you knew that we had success down here? Because you were down here every day watching the construction, picking up trash. I mean, when did it come to your mind?
I think one of the early things that made it clear to us that it was going to work, and Marlene Grissom, who was working with us at the time, and I were sitting down here because we had acquired the building and we had acquired the leased property. And Marlene and I said, why don't we, since we're not going to do some construction on it yet because we haven't completely finished everything, why don't we get railroad ties and create a pedestrian path down to the pier where they had loaded and unloaded gravel, and just put a fence around, put a railing around the pier and create it was in essence 3 city blocks long, and see if people would, and 2 days after that was all finished and done, people were out picnicking on the pier, and we put some picnic tables, just old wooden picnic tables out there. People were, and Marlene and I were sitting here looking out the window of like, I cannot look at those people walking out there. So that was a clue that it was going to work.
Is your only frustration that restaurants haven't been successful down here, except for one? Joe's Crab Shack is original. It's still here.
Well, Joe's Crab is successful. In fact, Joe's Crab Shack periodically has been their best shop in the country, and
but the other ones have not connected.
The first one was for a while was extraordinarily successful. I won't go into all the particulars of that, but as it was originally designed and operated, it was very successful.
Tumbleweed.
Tumbleweed.
So.
Just looks like it might have been built too large, is what you hear from others who have looked at it to try to reopen.
I'll tell you.
Okay. They'll tell me. Okay.
Right now, as we look 25 years later, has Waterfront Park done for the city that you originally hoped it would do, or has it even exceeded its expectations?
Yeah, I think it's exceeded its expectation, and I think it has sort of wet the whistle of interest going further west. I mean, now we're talking about moving the park west, and we've started it already with the children's play area, which is, as I said, fabulous, and it has the potential of going even further west. We also made the good decision, I think, at City Hall when we merged our city and county, to turn to David and said, work with us in the Pleasure Ridge Park area to be able to take that park and renovate, refurbish, and upgrade it to get folks from that area to begin appreciating the opportunities that the waterfront access had for them. And I think we did a good job as money was available.
Very successful.
Was Waterfront Park's westward expansion a part of the original plan? It did take a while, and for a while there was no money to move it forward.
It was not part of the original plan. The original plan was phase 1, 2, and 3 of what is now Waterfront Park. There was a lot of land down there, and one of the members of the Metro Council suggested we might take a look at
Sherry Bryant Hamilton.
We might take a look at going west. So we the board agreed to do that, and we hired a firm to look at that 24, it's about a 24-acre site down there. And we created there is a master plan for that.
Is it a true story that Jeffersonville originally was hesitant to connect its side of the bridge, or they just didn't have any money?
My recollection is it was a money issue.
Right.
My recollection was it was a political issue that the mayor didn't want it. There was a campaign.
That wasn't Mike Moore at the time.
Mike Moore ran against what was the guy's name?
Yeah, I could see him, but I don't. He was the incumbent.
Yes.
And he lost.
He lost, and one of the Mike would tell you. I don't think he would be angry with me saying it, because he was very reticent about the connecting, and I think in some of the campaigning he had said we don't need to be
because of the money.
Well, it could have been the money or just whatever. But he was reticent. Let's put it that way. But once it got done, he's absolutely the big.
I mean, look
yes.
What happens when you get off the bridge on the Indiana side. Look at what you see: apartments, condos, restaurants.
Did you all convince Mike Moore to turn the corner and get it done over there?
I think the realization was that when he started seeing people, he was thinking all these people on that bridge, and somebody started saying Mike. Well, Mike actually has history of being in the restaurant business anyway.
They had a Jerry's restaurant right off the interstate.
He was in the restaurant, and I think he
saw the train moving, and he decided at the appropriate time it was
light
time to
went off.
Jump on.
Is the expansion finished for Waterfront Park? I mean, it's now becoming a mature park. What happens when you become a mature park and an attraction like this, and you take it forward in the years forward?
Maintain, and also with the extra land going west, there's opportunities to expand the park. But right now, keep it maintained, keep it safe, and make sure families feel comfortable and continue to come down. And so far, it's been just it's been done that well.
David, you've retired now from this building, but is that with the vision you were having going forward? I mean, how would you be managing it today?
Well, the way I answered that question, because I get asked that a lot, is that the Waterfront Park's never going to be finished. Anybody who believes that a park is finished is living in a dream world. You find out that things that were part of the original design didn't work. You find out that there's modifications that need to be made. You find out that, okay, one thing, for example, there was a part of the entrance to this park right at the corner of this building that was, on paper, looked really good. But when it was completely finished, it was all concrete, and it was not very warm and not engaging. That was where we went to Sally Brown, and she wrote her Citizens Fidelity check, and she gave us the money to redo that entrance thing. And now it's a big, lush green area with shade and trees, so you're just never going to be done. And there is a master plan, Doug, for the whole 24 acres, because what Jerry's telling you about how exciting the play area is between 10th and 11th, that's only like 4 acres or so. So there's still a great deal of that. There is a master plan for that. So Deborah Blitzky, who is the new director of this park, is working on fundraising for that right now.
So this is a major legacy for both of you. When you look back at it now, what runs through your mind as you walk through the park? You now see mature trees, taller trees, and things that have been around for a while when everything was small and brand new more than 25 years ago.
Well, you point to it as a yes, we can. I mean, literally, as I said at the beginning, this was a community that just never saw the glass half full. And given an opportunity to see the chance to re-energize this entire waterfront for families for generations, and then see it be delivered as it has been in such a classic way, it brings a smile to my face, because it says, yes, we can. We can do whatever we want in a positive way for the future of our hometown once we all agree and put our minds to it.
The national attention it gets just must blow your mind. I mean, Louisville wasn't used to getting that kind of national attention. David?
Well, the park, and Jerry will remember this. This park was featured in the Smithsonian Institute, where they were doing a thing on 5 or 6 or 7 important parks. And
plus USA Today did a big thing where we were one of the 4 or 5 around the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's been publicized everywhere. It's been an extraordinary amount of attention. It's #1 river walk right now in the country. It's USA Today's #1 river walk in the United States.
And did other cities call you up over the years and say, hey, we want to do what you guys did, give us some ideas?
All the time. And we still get people asking us. Well, there's a whole camaraderie of any kind of riverfront development in this country anyway, and some of them, and we always and continue to work with other cities on new ideas that they had. We went down, when Matt Thornton was our chair, we went down to Houston, Texas, to look at 2 parks he wanted to see. He took us one time up to New York to the High Line to walk the High Line so we could see what was going on there. So you go study what is in other areas, and we get people. We've had people from Ireland. We had a delegation of Japanese landscape architects who came and stayed a week to study this park. I mean, it's been literally all over the world. We had a governor from Italy who came and spent several days here. I mean, all over the country you get people, all over the world, literally.
How do you see it in your personal legacy? I mean, this building's named after you. You spent so many years down here every single day for several hours and on weekends. How do you see it as your personal legacy?
I think the legacy is what I keep saying, is that the people are the legacy. The people who are willing to come here, the people who know it's their commons, they know it's. And look at what you haven't asked us about, that we probably should mention, is look at the events that take place down here, Doug. I mean, you've got Waterfront Wednesdays that are free, that draw thousands of people. You've got, and it's every kind of event, healthcare walks. It's people who want to be married down here. You just get any kind of imagine. They do over 100 events now in this park a year.
And you know what he's too humble to talk about, but the reality was, when we put this thing together and we got the sign off from the governor and the county judge at that time and myself as mayor to set up this Waterfront Development Corporation, I can remember calling David and asking him if he would be willing to be the first chair. Not the executive director or president, but the first chair. And he was, we thought that would be a great idea. He was so important in Frankfurt and had such a leadership role in the Senate that he could ultimately help guide us on how to attract funds. But then after a while, David called me up and he said, you know, I love this, this park. I'd like to do it full time. And he was a practicing attorney as well as a state senator. And the smartest move I ever made was reaching back to him and saying, you're the director of this organization full time, you're the president, we pay you, you're an employee now, and we'll get ourselves chairman. And that's when we got people like Charlie McCarty.
Well, Steve Miles was the first one.
And then Charlie McCarty and Matt Thornton. And we were able to pick others in the community who were community leaders, as David has always been. But the smartest move I ever made was to reach out to him to be the first chair, and then to realize that with his passion for this waterfront, if he were the president, the executive director working day to day, watch out, and he delivered.
You once told me too that it was important that this was not part of the Metro Park system, and that goes to what's called the Waterfront Development Corporation. It's a separate entity. Why was this park different and special that it needed to have its own governing board, its own maintenance crew, its own special staff attention?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of discussion about that in terms of whether it was the right way to go or the wrong way to go. But the fact that the state was either already talking about joining us, or we certainly were reaching out, knowing we were going to reach out and ask them for financial support. It was important there was an entity that the state appointed people to this board of directors and had some input and engagement, so that when we went to Frankfurt and when David was there, and for years after David retired, there was a line item in that budget that provided financial support for our operating budget here on an annual basis.
But as the mayor, you knew the capabilities for Metro Parks versus what this park was going to suddenly drop on the city. You felt it was just too overwhelming, wouldn't have been supported by the budget every year?
I don't know if it wouldn't have been supported, but this is a very unique park. And whether it's Cherokee or Shawnee or Iroquois or you name the park, none of them are like this place. And they don't get the kind of use that this place gets. It doesn't attract people from all over the community like the waterfront does. And we just thought it was important that we have our own institution that would oversee it with the relationship to the city. Every now and then I would call my friend and say to David, you know, I'm not sure that's good. Or he would call me and say, we're going to do this. Is it okay? But the reality was the working relationship worked, and the park, as you see, was a tremendous success.
David, how many times did you get a call from him? Hey, I was in the park this weekend and the trash cans weren't emptied, or the grass over here is looking a little bad?
Very frequently.
Really? Do you remember one particular call? Or
there were many calls. There were many calls. I was at that restroom wasn't. I couldn't get in. The door was. There was no toilet paper. I mean, you got all of it. The water fountain out front doesn't work. I mean, you got all that.
Yeah, and David was a responsive public servant, and he would get his folks to act accordingly. And now the head of the maintenance crew for this entire park lives in my neighborhood, and so I get to reminisce with him about those calls.
And you would get calls from the public specifically about. Oh. I'm sure you had amazing phone calls over the years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was easy, you know. It was not a secret phone number. it was a public phone number, and we got.
Was it your policy to get it done right away?
We always. Well, I think it's yes, absolutely critical to get it done. One of the things, for example, is graffiti. If you don't take care of the graffiti right away, that it grows more graffiti, and so our crew. The crew is just tuned in to immediately get any kind of graffiti. Sometimes the director doesn't even have to call, because they see it themselves and they take care of it instantly. You want this park to look pristine as much as possible 24/7.
And here we've got a coal barge right behind you all coming in right now. And that really is the legacy of this park. When you look at those old black and white photos, when you see what dominated and controlled our waterfront,
it was a working waterfront.
Did you feel it was impossible that it would ever change to green?
Yeah, no, I think, as David said, things change over time. And there was a point in time where this river city used this river for economic development and economic opportunities. And the warehouses on Main Street were set up to warehouse stuff that was coming down from Pittsburgh, down from Cincinnati. We were, when people say, oh, UPS provided us or made us the logistics community. We were a logistics community years ago because, as you know, the river bends. You can't go over the falls with those flatboats and steamers that used to come down. They had to take the stuff off the boats here. They had to portage it all the way around to the other side of the lock and dam to get back on a boat to go down to the Mississippi. So we've always been a logistics center, and this working waterfront in that period of time was really important. There was a point in time, and the reason why you see I-64 going by here was because this area, other than a working waterfront, was a homeless shelter location for folks who were literally living down here in tents. And so when the city fathers and mothers made the decision of putting 64 to divide the city from the waterfront, nobody thought it was a big deal one way or the other. The people that were hanging out were not the ones that were making decisions. And the waterfront, as a working waterfront, didn't need the connection any more than it already had. So they built 64. And in a perfect world, and we looked at it, we would have taken down 64 to make the waterfront an even more enhanced location, but that just simply wasn't an option.
Well, as you look at the coal barge behind you there, David, that's sort of the legacy of our waterfront of that. And you've not forgotten that history here, but you're embracing the future, sort of away from that industry, that industrial footprint.
Well, we know. I mean, what's fun when you do presentations, because a lot of people in Louisville don't even. It's fun to talk to people because some of them have no clue that Louisville is the one city that had to be on the Ohio River. It's the only city that absolutely had a reason it had to exist, and that was, as Jerry said, the falls of the Ohio. And so you had the locks back into the 1850s. They built locks so you could get down to the river, and so Louisville had to be here. So there's always this legacy of the river, and you have to, and you still embrace that. I mean, we like to tell people, for example, you're talking about this barge. The Ohio River generally carries more tonnage annually than any other river in the United States. Still, we tell people when you see a certain size barge, they'd love to hear you tell them that's the biggest barge that can go through that locks. 5 barges long, 3 barges wide, longest that you can get through the locks. And so you want to embrace the heritage of it. And what better embracement of the heritage than to stand on the Big 4 bridge, looking down there and seeing the boats come and
right underneath you.
Right underneath you, and they get a kick out of it. They're thrilled to see it. And we go, and you've been out there and seen that. The people, they lean over and they want to look at they're just tickled that the barges are coming under there, or that the Belle of Louisville or the Mary Millers coming through there. I mean, it's the river history is there. And you've got 2 of the greatest boats in the country right here. You've got one as a National Historic Landmark, the Belle of Louisville, and the Mary Miller, named after the first woman to ever hold a pilot's license in the United States who was a resident of Portland. So it's the history of the
Portland,
river.
Louisville.
Portland,
Not
Louisville.
Portland,
Not
Oregon.
Portland, any other where.
The original old city.
Yeah.
And of course, then you had Abe Lincoln's legacy. He came down here and sat at the waterfront when he was visiting the Speed family.
Which is why we were so fortunate to be able to have one of our own, Mr. Hamilton, design the area and do the entire area that has the reliefs as well as the statue of Abraham Lincoln, for people to remember that instance and for people to remember what Abraham Lincoln took away from his visit to his friend out at Farmington, Mr. Speed, and that was what he had seen on the waterfront, which were the sale of human beings at that time when slavery was still a part of the country.
He never forgot it. Well, thank you both for doing this. It's been a great joy to go to listen to the stories about Waterfront Park, and hope you have many more long walks across the Big Fort Bridge.
We hope so
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
And we thank you very much for watching this WHAS 11 special presentation on WHAS 11 Plus. I'm Doug Proffitt.